all have our favourites. Whether it's the 90s, 2000s, or that cheeky Japanese adaptation from the 70s.
Yeah, 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 wow. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
One thing that has become prevalent throughout the many iterations of Spider-Man is that the animated interpretations stand the test of time. And the live-action versions, less so. Which begs the question, just what got lost in translation? Most live-action superhero films have felt the need to take outlandish character design and transform the costume into modern-day body armour. But every Spider-Man franchise has kept his red and blue tights relatively intact, which makes it difficult to point fingers in the most obvious department. Putting aside stylistic changes, and plot threads you may or may not agree with, I'd argue many great comic book adaptations can overcome that. Could it possibly boil down to just a couple of fundamentals? Number one, that offensive time constraint, enforced on creative minds working in television broadcast. That ironclad runtime of 22 minutes per episode. A handicap that feature filmmakers have never had to obey. David Mamet, Pulitzer Prize-winning playwright and swearfest extraordinaire, wrote a pretty infamous memo to his writer's room that seems to ring true to the TV format. And I quote, "Any dickhead can be taught to say, make it clearer, and I want to know more about him or her. The problem is this, to differentiate between drama and non-drama. Let me break it down now. Everyone in creation is screaming at us to make the show clear. We are tasked with, it seems, cramming a shitload of information into a little bit of time." Which I think speaks volumes to John Semper Jr. and the writing staff on the Spider-Man 94 animation. Let's take a look at two parallel timelines between the differing formats, Night of the Lizard and Amazing Spider-Man the film #1. Both plots follow the same villain and general plot arc. Kurt Connors, a scientist with a missing arm, is trying to find a way to regenerate human limbs by grafting lizard DNA with human samples. He has some limited success with animal test subjects, but it's slowly revealed throughout both narratives that Doc Connors has been testing his formula on himself, resulting in his transformation into a man-eating monster lizard. Once the reptilian side takes over, and this is where things get strenuous in terms of character motivation, Connors hatches a plot to turn the citizens of New York into a superior race of lizard people. But only Spider-Man can save the day. Oh dearie dearie me. That sounds like a disaster, right? Well, for one of them it is anyway. If we take a look at both respective timelines visually, this is where the key plot points are explained. For the 94 series, and here and there for the theatrical adaptation. The live-action movie falls down with its primary conflict and subplots, something the pilot from 94 delivers with hyper-confidence. In the film, Connors is on a tight deadline to develop a serum for his employer, Oscorp, because his boss, Norman Osborn, is dying. We never meet this guy, we never see Osborn. We don't know if he's a nice guy or a bad guy. We learn nothing about him, we just know his company uses some cool-looking technology. It's because of this lack of empathy for Osborn that as a spectator you lose interest in Connor's motivation for finding a cure and becoming an antagonist. In the 90s pilot, the sole motivation is Dr. Connor regrowing his arm in his own lab for the benefits of mankind. In this scene between J. Jonah Jameson, Peter Parker and Eddie Brock, we get the details of the main plot and a nice setup for a secondary story beat, all within the confines of heavy exposition dialogue. In a total runtime of 1 minute, we establish immediately that Parker seems to always get the best shots of Spider-Man, has been working as a lab assistant with Doc Connors for some time, and is an admirer of his work. He also quickly but unintentionally earns the indignation of Brock for stealing his perceived news story in the same moment. Plus, we establish J. Jonah as a gruff ass-kicker, who is always trying to motivate his staff with quick cash. But if that isn't good enough, the scene we just witnessed explains why Parker and his alter ego want to find the lizard before the cops and the press do, thus exposing his identity as Kurt Connors. Peter has plenty to lose, both personally and financially, which means it doesn't matter as much if Connor's goal of turning the citizens of New York into man-eating lizards is a sensible idea. As an audience, we're invested in Parker trying to protect his mentor and teacher, as well as getting that $1,000 to help out his Aunt May with the bills. In the feature version, Peter has no established relationship with Connors. As a result, the impact of Spider-Man having to fight the character was lessened. should have been a conflicted mentor figure played like any other mad scientist. There's also a few subplots that vanish into thin air. Peter, after a 5-minute montage, completely abandons the search for his uncle's killer, and is never revisited again, ever. Ifran Khan, whose sole purpose, and I'm not kidding here, is to remind Doc Connors occasionally that Osborn is still dying, and you need to work faster, disappears once the script calls for it. In the cartoon, that little snippet of info about Parker being so familiar with Spider-Man helps foreshadow Brock skulking around on his trail later in the episode. He knows Peter has a knack for getting the best pics of Spider-Man, so it makes complete sense Eddie would try to swoop in and cut his lunch. No dialogue required. Each time Brock is foiled by Spider-Man, it justifies his growing disdain towards Parker as a co-worker. The seeds of doom are sown, and sets him up in later episodes as a villain with an agenda. Fantastic payoff. I'd much rather something succinct and to the point than a padded out runtime, which... Speaking of runtimes, let's take a quick look at the numbers. Okay, not preferable but doable. Oh no, we're starting to get a wriggle on here. Struth. I think I want my money back. That bloated runtime is Bollywood territory now. Let's just take a look at the larger picture. Hang on. What's this down here? Oh, that's better. I wonder why Spider-Verse doesn't run as long as the live-action movies. It contains a sprawling cast of heroes, and countless villains to accommodate story-wise with their own wants and desires. Could it be that the runtime needs to be shorter to accommodate the little critters in the theatre from getting too restless? That the creators didn't want to oversaturate the film with characterisation to the point where everyone, including the adults, might forget what the movie is actually about, which in turn forces the writers to ask themselves of every scene these 3 questions. Who wants what? What happens if he, she doesn't get it? Why now? Would it be too much of a stretch to extrapolate that it forces the filmmakers to be more economical with their story beats and character arcs? Methinks yes. The other facet of Spider-Man that hasn't worked too well in the live-action format is the web swinging, whether taking off, jumping or joyriding between buildings. I know this is a fairly literal observation, but removing the web swinging from Spider-Man is like taking...
No on the cape.
I think it's cool.
Take that off. It's disrespectful. Spider-Man doesn't wear a cape.
It's a massive part of the character's identity, so why does it still look a bit on the piddle even now? Best place to start is with the first big budget effort in 2002. This seems to be a common problem amongst Sam Raimi films. Andy Armstrong sums it up best in an interview he did with Entertainment Weekly. I brought in an Olympic level gymnast, had him do stuff on a high bar, various big dynamic swings. When you look at a real gymnast do a real swing on a giant bar, you realise when you see it as a computer-generated swing in the early Spider-Mans, he swings down at the same speed as he swings up. It's all constant. When you see a powerful gymnast do it, his downward motion is actually a really violent action. He's accelerating until he reaches the bottom. Then as he starts to come up, he's decelerating until he gets to the top of his swing and actually gets negative gravity. Where he'll go weightless for a second, and then the next swing starts, and it becomes another violent swing again. Okay, sounds promising. If we take a quick look at these behind-the-scenes stunt videos, we might get a better idea of what Andy envisioned the final product as. So he was thinking a series of shots that hold or follow the action for a period of time. I wonder what we ended up with. That was pretty solid. It really felt like a bloke on the end of a web line. Hope all the bigger cityscape stuff feels as weighty and accurate as this. Turnips. The feature films haven't been able to deliver what the animated versions have for a while. And that's one simple rule. Too much dynamic camera movement with too much dynamic action at the same time becomes too difficult for the human eye to follow. Check out these shots from the animated interpretations. Notice how your eyes have no problem following the dynamic movements of the swings? That's because the creators have prioritised the action over choosing the most dynamic camera movement. It's easier to tell exactly what's happening on screen at any moment. Once the most dynamic angle takes priority over clarity, things become much more evasive. The sequence becomes what lowbrow but profound moviegoers refer to simply as a CGI fest. A more accurate adjective to describe this emotional response would be a meditative state. Doesn't matter how quick the cuts or how well composed your frame is, it's not going to jolt an audience to re-engage with a sequence that has already outstayed its welcome, especially if you can't intrinsically link the emotional stakes with the visual image. Which brings me circling back to my first point about timekeeping. To state it plainly, the right running time is dependent on what objectives the film wants to accomplish, and the detail it wants to go into and how much of its world it wants to explore.
Thanks for the ride, Uncle
Oh,
Ben.
wait a minute, Peter. We need to talk.
Well, we can talk later.
Well, we can talk now, if you let me.
What do we have to talk about?
Yeah, I did. But this guy deserved it.
Did he?
Yeah.
Is he the kid that hit you? Is he?
Yeah. Yeah, but
So all this is about getting even.
If your film is more anecdotal fun than, say, a study on urban vigilante practices, and its wider implications on society, you should be thinking long and hard about a shorter runner time. Just an observation. I hope I didn't miss anything.
Nope, that wasn't everything.
What did I miss?
The theme song.
Yeah, but none of them are worth writing home about.
Excuse me? What about this guy?
Hey, I wanna be a rock star.
Blonde Jesus. What about him?
Only that he's written the greatest superhero ballad of all time.
Is that so? I think Michael Bublé might have something to say about that.
Your buddy, Mickey, didn't make the cut. People exaggerate how bad Nickelback songs are in general anyway.
You're right. Most of their songs are just incredibly average. But let me get this straight. You think Hero is an incredible piece of...
I do. And I'm tired of pretending it's not. Don't try to understand it. Just feel it.
Shit, Pete. That's deep.